In this video, we will talk about trig equations. How do we solve for x using calculator? We're given 2x squared plus 1 is equal to x plus 1. Normally, we would go to graph and then put this left equation on the y1 and then the right equation on y2, and then we would go for second calc, then intersections. So that's the method we're going to be using for this section. Solve for 2 sine of x minus cosine of x is equal to 4 minus x. For domain, that's going from 0 to 2 pi. If you're given a domain in terms of the radian, you need to make sure the mode is in radian. Next, we're going to go to y equal on graphing and type in 2 sine of x minus cosine of x onto y1, and then 4 minus x into y2. Then you would go to graph to get a graphing on the right side. Sometimes you don't get that graphing and you might have to play around with the window, but I find it helpful if you go to Zoom and number 7, Z Trig. Sometimes you still have to play around with the window. So in that case, what I would do is look at the domain and notice it goes from 0 to 2 pi, so your minimum has to be somewhat little bit less than 0. So I would plug in -1 or -2 and up to 2 pi. You can put in the maximum of 2 pi and maybe plus 1 or 2 as it is. So maximum you would plug in as 2 pi plus 1. And in order to find the intersections, that's the main goal of this question, you got to observe how many intersections there are in this graph. There are 3, so you should be getting 3 answers. You can go to second trace to find intersections. The answers come out to be x is equal to 1.82, 3.28, and 5.81. So I highly suggest that you try this on your own on a graphing calculator and move on to the next slide. Next, we are going to solve for x algebraically. Given 2 sine of x minus 1 is equal to 0 in the domain x between 0 to pi. First, we're going to add 1 on both sides, so we can cancel out the 1's. So we're left with 2 sine of x is equal to 1. Then we're going to divide by 2, so we get sine of x is equal to half. Then you need to think about where is sign positive. All students take calculus. Therefore, on the first and second quadrant, the sign will be positive. Then we need to think about on one angle, does the sign equal to half? On a unit circle section from the last chapter, we talked about the first angle closer to the 90 degree is going to be pi over 3. Then it's going to be pi over 4. Lastly, we have pi over 6. The angles in here are 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2, with the square root on the numerator. So these are the essential coordinates that you need to know for this chapter. So now we can observe that sine, which is a y value, is half on the angle of pi over 6 for the first blue angle on the first quadrant. So pi over 6 is an answer. And then the red angle that starts it at 0 all the way up until the second quadrant, that has to be 5 pi over 6. If you plug it back in, sine of pi over 6 is half. Sine of 5 pi over 6 is also half. Solve for x given tangent of x plus square root of 3 is equal to 0 for given domain from 0 to 4 pi. Given 4 pi, you know you're going around the circle twice because each circle is 2 pi. Solving for tangent of x, we get tangent of x is equal to negative square root of 3. From the previous chapter, we learned tangent of x is equal to sine of x over cosine of x. In order to get a negative root 3, we need to have the numerator root 3 over 2 and denominator 1 over 2. Because that cancels out, times the reciprocal of half is 2 over 1, so that cancels out to be square root of 3. So we need to think about, first, where is tangent negative? All students take calculus. So tangent is negative on second and fourth quadrant. Then think about where is sine has a value of root 3 over 2. When the angle is pi over 3, so on a second quadrant, that has to be 2 pi over 3. And lastly, at 5 pi over 3. So that is the answer if you go around the circle one time. So for example, if you're looking at after full revolution, and then 2 pi over 3 more, we would just have to add 2 pi and 2 pi on each of the angles that we have found already. In that case, 2 pi with a denominator of 3 will make it 6 pi over 3. So the next answer will be 8 pi over 3. And then we have 11 pi over 3. Again, when you plug in for tangent of these four angles, it should give us an angle, the answer of negative root 3. Another solve for x question between the domain of 0 to 3 pi. So 0 to 3 pi means full circle and then half the circle. So you're going around the circle 1.5 times. Let's think about where is sine negative half. Sine is negative on all students take calculus. So on third and fourth quadrant, and sine is negative half on when x is equal to 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. So that is if we go around the circle one time. If we go half the circle, there is no angle that we're going to hit on the first half of the circle, so you have only two answers for this question. Another way to think about this question is by graphing. If you draw sine of x, which is in black, goes from 0 to 3 pi, and then another y value is a negative half. So you get a straight line, which is in blue, all the way to 3 pi. Then you think about where are the intersections of these two graphs. You get two kinds of intersections, so you should only end up with two answers, which are 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Next, we have sine of 2x is equal to negative half. Your angle has been multiplied by 2. So first thing we need to do is changing the domain. Given the domain from 0 to 3 pi, your x has become 2x. So you're going to multiply left and right by 2. 0 times 2 is a 0, 3 pi times 2 is a 6 pi. So our new domain is going from 0 to 6 pi. That means you're going around the circle 3 times. So sine of an angle is half, or negative half, on, again, third and fourth quadrant. So we know from the previous question, the angle must be 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. That's if we go around the circle once. So if you go around the circle second time, you need to add 2 pi on both of these. 2 pi being 12 pi over 6 and 12 pi over 6. So we get another answer of 19 pi over 6, 23 pi over 6, and that's if you go around the circle twice, so we need to do it one more time. So next answer will be 31 pi over 6 by adding 2 pi onto 19 pi over 6, and the last answer will be 35 pi over 6. Notice in here that these 6 angles are equal to 2x, but we want to solve for x. In order to solve for x, we need to divide all of these 6 angles by 2. So your final answer will be 7 pi over 12, 11 pi over 12, 19 pi over 12, 23 pi over 12, 31 pi over 12, and lastly 35 pi over 12. So one way that you can check these answers is simply plugging it into the original equation. If you plug in 7 pi over 12 onto sine of 2x, do you get negative half? Let's see. By plugging in 7 pi over 12, multiplying that by 2, you get 7 pi over 6. And we saw it from the previous problem that sine of 7 pi over 6 is equal to negative half. Another way to look at this in graphing is after graphing sine of 2x, which is in black, and then see where it intersects with y is equal to negative half. You see there has to be 6 answers. So that's another way that you can check the answer by graphing. Last question. You can imagine what's going to happen on your domain given that sine of x minus pi over 6 is equal to negative half. On an original domain goes from 0 to 3 pi. This time your x has become x minus pi over 6, so you're going to subtract pi over 6 on left and right. So 0 minus pi over 6 is just negative pi over 6. And then 3 pi minus pi over 6 becomes 17 pi over 6. So this is your new domain. Sine of an angle is negative half on 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Notice the domain, we subtracted pi over 6 from 3 pi, so that means you're going around the circle once, which makes it 2 pi, and less than half the circle. So there is no way you're going to hit these black angles again going into positive angles. So now we got to look at negative pi over 6. Negative pi over 6 is this angle. So that includes our domain. That angle is included in our domain. So your answer should contain negative pi over 6. Now let's solve for x by adding pi over 6 on both sides. So first angle will be adding pi over 6. You get 8 pi over 6, 12 pi over 6, and then lastly 0. So if you simplify this, you get 4 pi over 3, and then 2 pi and 0. So you will get 3 answers for this question. Now, it's a bit of a harder question. Let's find exact solutions of square root of 2 cosine of x minus 3 pi over 4 plus 1 is equal to 0. What we need to do is we need to solve for cosine of an angle equals to something. So by subtracting 1 on both sides, we get square root of 2 of cosine x minus 3 pi over 4 equals to negative 1. Then by dividing it by square root of 2 on both sides, we get cosine of x minus 3 pi over 4 is equal to negative 1 over square root of 2. But if we rationalize this by multiplying by square root of 2 on both top and the bottom, we get square root of 2 over 2. So now you got to think, where is cosine negative? Cosine is negative. All students take calculus, so it's negative on second and third quadrant. Then, where is cosine? Negative square root of 2 over 2. That's the 45-degree angle, in other words, pi over 4. So on the second quadrant, the angle has to be 3 pi over 4. On the next angle will be 5 pi over 4. If you look at the domain has 0 to 6 pi originally, but your angle, the x, has been changed by subtracting 3 pi over 4. So you need to subtract 3 pi over 4 on both sides. Simplifying, you have 0 minus 3 pi over 4 is just negative 3 pi over 4. On the right side, 6 pi is equivalent of 24 pi over 4. So you have 21 pi over 4. If you think about 21 pi over 4, that's about 5.25. So that means you're going around the circle twice and then a little bit more than a half. So let's see if these answers fall in ranges. So in order to find the next angle, you'll be adding 2 pi, which is going to be 8 pi over 4. So your next answer will be 11 pi over 4. Adding 2 pi, you get 13 pi over 4. Let's keep on adding until we hit 21 pi over 4 or less. So adding another 2 pi onto 11 pi over 4, which is again 8 pi over 4, you get 19 pi over 4. And then finally 21 pi over 4. If you go to the negative direction, this is negative 3 pi over 4. So that's the first angle that we're going to hit going into the negative direction. So your answer will include negative 3 pi over 4 as well. So now solving for x, we're going to have to add 3 pi over 4 on both sides. So first one will be 6 pi over 4. Then we have 8 pi over 4. 14 pi over 4. 16 pi over 4. 22 pi over 4. 24 pi over 4. And lastly, 0. Just simplify these answers. So we have 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, 7 pi over 2, 4 pi, 11 pi over 2, 6 pi, and 0. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 answers. Find exact solutions of tangent of 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to 1 on domain that goes from negative pi to positive pi. You notice in here that tangent of an angle has become 2x minus pi over 3. So you need to make the angle 2x minus pi over 3 by multiplying what's given by 2, then subtracting pi over 3. So the left domain becomes negative 2 pi minus pi over 3. Then the right domain becomes 2 pi minus pi over 3. Simplifying, you get negative 7 pi over 3, and then 5 pi over 3. Now, let's think about where is tangent equals to 1. Tangent again is sine over cosine, and sine and cosine value has to be the same in order to become 1. And that's an easy one because we know it has to be pi over 4. Tangent is positive on first and third quadrants. So 2x minus pi over 3, the angle is equal to pi over 4, and then the next angle will be 5 pi over 4. Let's add 2 pi onto pi over 4. So that becomes 2 pi is 8 pi over 4, so that becomes 9 pi over 4. And how do we know if 9 pi over 4 is less than or equal to 5 pi over 3? Well, 5 pi over 3 is about 5 divided by 3, 1.320. So 1.6 radians versus 9 over 4 is about 9 divided by 4, so 2 times. So that's 2 times some other radians. But we already know that 9 pi over 4 is definitely greater than 1.6, so this is not part of the answer. Now let's move on to a negative direction. Going in from 0 to the positive or negative angle, that angle has to be negative 3 pi over 4. And then lastly, if you go around this way, that angle will be negative 7 pi over 4. Negative 7 pi over 4 is definitely less than 7 pi over 3 because you're dividing it by a bigger number. So over 4 will be less than over 3 on a negative side. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 answers. And in order to solve for an angle, think of it this way. You have 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to pi over 4. That's one of the answers. In order to solve for x, you would first need to add pi over 3, then divide it by 2. So adding pi over 3 on both sides, you get 7 pi over 12. So 2x is equal to 7 pi over 12. And then dividing it by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by half. So that becomes 7 pi over 24. So that is the one solution for the angle. You would do exactly the same process to solve for the rest of the angle. 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to 5 pi over 4. Adding pi over 3 on both sides, you get, this would be over 12, 15 pi plus 4 pi, so that would be 19 pi over 12. So dividing it by 2, which is same thing as multiplying by half, you get 19 pi over 24. Alright, now we have two more angles, so I'm going to do it all at once. 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to negative 3 pi over 4 and negative 7 pi over 4. So by adding pi over 3 on both sides, you get over 12 and over 12. So the first one will be multiplying by 3, so that becomes negative 9 pi plus 4 pi. And then second one will become negative 21 pi plus 4 pi. So we can simplify that as negative 5 pi over 12 and then negative 17 pi over 12. Solving for x, we're dividing it by 2 or multiplying by half. Finally, we have negative 5 pi over 24 and negative 17 pi over 24. So here are the four answers. 7 pi over 24, 19 pi over 24, negative 5 pi over 24, and negative 17 pi over 24. Find the exact solutions of root 3 sine of x is equal to cosine of x for given domain from 0 to 360 degrees. When you are given a domain in degrees, your answer should also be in degrees. Now let's solve for x by dividing cosine on both sides. So you get root 3 sine of x over cosine of x is equal to 1. Then you're going to divide by root 3 on both sides. So you get sine of x over cosine of x is equal to 1 over square root of 3. You know sine of x over cosine of x could be rewritten as a tangent of x. So tangent of x is equal to 1 over square root of 3 when Numerator is equal to half, and denominator is equal to root 3 over 2. Again, just to check that, we can multiply by the reciprocal. Here, 2's will cancel out, and you're left with 1 over root 3. Now, think about for what value, what angle of a tangent would you have 1 over root 3? Where is sine half? First, tangent is positive on first and third quadrant, and sine is half on pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. Pi over 6 is equivalent of 30 degrees. So your first answer will be 30 degrees. And then the other answer will be 30 degrees more than 180 degrees. So it would be 110 degrees. Since you're only looking at an angle from 0 to 360 degrees, that's a 1 full revolution. So you would only get 2 answers for this question.